Welcome, Denis Labrecque here, and as advertised, we're going to look at making pop-ups using only CSS. Now, the advantages of this technique is that it should always work no matter if people have JavaScript turned off or they have also pop-ups turned off, because you don't need a JavaScript to invoke this method of doing things, I mean. Okay, and you have no need to use a script or to change a script each time you're making a new pop-up. And it's a fast method for the user because there's no need to load anything new. The pop-up is already present on the web page and you just make it appear. My friend just a few days ago was saying that he would, this is so fast, and I click on it and it appears right away. It's so fast because you don't need to load anything new on a page. It does not work with a link. So just for a demo, I'll just go to, this is how my website should look in a couple of months or years, I'm not sure, but anyhow, you see that when I click on this button, I get this pop-up that opens immediately, and featured compositions or wherever else I put one. Now this is a bit slow because I'm recording with a video at the same time, so the animations take a bit of time, but on to my demo now. So I forgot to reload this. This is how our pop-up will look in the end. So basically you have two choices. Either you can use the close button or you can also tap on top. And that's all there is to it. Now, of course, what you want to see is the code. So, this is my document. Now we have the beginning of the document, which is not too important except for our link to a style sheet. I have my style sheet right up here. And I have a label. Now, this is how it works. My label here, and just let me deactivate my hiding of that label so you can see what I'm doing. I use this class called smoosh to hide anything. You use this code and it's going to hide, anything will disappear because it's going to take up no space. So now that I can show you, you see that I have this little checkbox. This label is used to turn this checkbox on. When this checkbox is checked, as soon as it's checked, the CSS will detect that it's checked and then make my pop-up display. And now that it's displayed, I have a new label inside that pop-up connected to the same checkbox that makes it close. The same thing is true for this area on the back, and I'll explain it to you in a moment, but basically what this is, it's another label with no text inside. This tap here to dismiss is added through CSS, so I don't need to type it each time. And basically it's a label that's used as a division with a semi-transparent color, and it's right behind the whole of the page, and it appears at the same time as the pop-up, and it allows you to dismiss the pop-up in the same way as using the close button. So now, we have our label and how labels work. They make either input boxes of type checkbox or of type radio box turn on or off. So in this instance, our checkbox is by default, it's unchecked. If you want it to be checked by default, you would write checked equals checked. And that would mean that at each time you load your page, now the checkbox is checked already, so that means a pop-up appears already. And you can just close that like that. But for now, I'll just want to leave that unchecked, so we'll leave that default. And we have our label here, which is what I was explaining with the surrounding margin of the pop-up. Now let me show this to you more clearly because I changed my styles last time. Our overlay is here. I'll make it a transparency of half. Okay, so this is going to be better. Okay, so here we go. So this is more how it looks like usually. And this label is the same as this label. It may be hard to imagine, but it's a label with no text inside, and it's made to span the width of the page. So I'll kind of skip it for now and just go to the main matter, which is our division of overlay dialog. And this overlay dialog is really the pop-up. So inside I have a header 2, and I have a paragraph, and I have my close button. Now the important thing with using labels is, I'm not sure I mentioned it fully, but the for equals, this refers to the ID of the checkbox. So the checkbox is right here. And the label will turn the checkbox on, the checkbox of this ID. So for this ID, and when you click on it, well, that checkbox goes on. So it's basically how that works. If I want to make a new pop-up, just to show you how simple it is, I just copy the code, and we don't really need the comments. I won't bother taking them all off. All you need to make sure is that you make a different ID for every pop-up. Here we go. And you'll need a way to invoke the pop-up so that it actually displays. So what you'll want to do is create a new label here. So we go label, and then for equals our pop-up 2. Yeah. Pop-up's tricky to write. And let's just make sure we can identify this second pop-up. So we have pop-up 2. And now, when I reload the page, we have 2 text, and when I click here to invoke the second pop-up, I have pop-up 2. And if I click on the first pop-up, pop-up 1. So it's really that easy once you have the code mastered. Now I'll show you this style sheet, and I'll explain you a few things. Now this is my overlay. This block of code makes as I was saying, the dark margin on each edge appear. And we'll kind of skip over that to go direct. It works exactly in the same way as my division overlay dialog. And if you remember correctly, the division overlay dialog refers to my pop-up. So we need a position of fixed and display none, because by default, when you load the page, this pop-up does not display. So right now it's on display none. And it has a width of 100% of the page. The pop-up indeed has a width of 100% of the page. And it has a left margin of 0, right margin of 0, top margin of 15%, a bottom margin of 15%. And the background is a white smoke color. It could be whatever you want. But here is the important part. In the style sheet, I am looking for an input of type checkbox. This refers to my web page, where we have an input of type checkbox. With the class of smoosh, I knew that I would be using class of smoosh to hide the checkbox, so I used that class because I was sure that it would work and that I would use that class. And when you have an input of checkbox, type checkbox, of class smoosh, which is checked, then if in the same parent element there's a division of a class overlay dialog, that division overlay dialog will have a display of block and a Z index of 500, which means it's way on top of the page. So basically what that means is that this when the checkbox is checked, my display goes from none to block, because this style is more specific than the other one, and it makes a pop-up appear. So of course, if this code is too complicated for you, you can just copy it and see how it works for yourself. You don't need to modify it in any way. Now, just one thing I want to mention with that code is that you do need to have your input box, your checkbox, in the same parent element, which is span, as the division of your overlay dialog. Now, I could have used something else in span. I could have used, I guess, division. But I'll show you what it does without the span. We get a problem, because then the CSS goes, so there are 2 pop-ups with a class of overlay dialog. So as soon as either one of the checkboxes is checked, both pop-ups display. So for example, if we click on this button, we get pop-up 2, whereas we should get pop-up 1. Plus, what's even worse, we can't even close this pop-up 2 because we should be able to close pop-up 1 first, because that's what's affecting the styles. So it really doesn't work. So that what I'm saying is the only thing you need to do is enclose all this in a span. And I'm telling you that specifically because I had a hard time to find what my problem was before I realized that was the problem. Okay, so I'll just make sure that I go through all the styles because I did not do that last time, and that was my problem. So of course I have my .smoosh. The only important thing really here is display none, and that'll make it anything that has a class of point smoosh will basically disappear off the page because everything is set to 0 and transparent and all that. Okay, so we have our division overlay dialog once again. Now these are the essential styles. Those on the bottom I tried to split them, but they're basically all the decorative elements. So we have a nice padding so that things look good and not on the margin right here. And we have an overflow Y of auto. What this does is that if you have a lot of content in this pop-up, or if you're looking at this pop-up from the point of view of a phone, which would kind of make stuff, really small, well then when the text overflows to the bottom of this division, instead of just disappearing, you'll have a scroll bar that will appear to the side, which will make you capable of reading the rest of the contents inside this pop-up. We have an animation. I don't know if you can notice it, but as it appears, it only takes 0.3 of a second. But this animation makes the pop-up kind of open like a page scrolls to the left. And on the video it won't be very beautiful because I don't have many frames per second. But if you use this this code right here, I have my keyframes for the animation start, and you'll see that 0% of the time I have 55 degrees backwards and an opacity of 0, which means you can't see the pop-up at first, and gradually at 100% you have an opacity of 1 and the pop-up faces you directly. And also I have apparently space at the top and at the bottom of 24 points. That makes that gives the margin to the pop-up. I think I had these set to something else originally. On top, yeah, 15%. So yeah, if you want to pop up with less text, you could use this. Because again, this division overlay dialog comes afterwards this style rule, so it's more specific. And we have a label overlay. That label overlay is the black part here. So it has a background color of black, and it's half black, so it's semi-transparent. And a text align center, and it has a color, the text has a color of this value, and a line height. I had to specify the line height, and well, whatever. And the thing is here, interestingly, label point overlay before, when you use this tag, it adds content before your label. Here it looks like it's at the same time, but it is before. And the content is tap here to dismiss. So this is not actually written inside the web page. The idea is just that each time I add this label, I don't need to write tap here to dismiss. It comes automatically, and I can change this on 1,000 pages if I want at once. And I have these are kind of non-essential, but these are the styles I used for the label and for my body, just to beautify that a little bit. That's what makes the labels blue and the body have a margin. So I hope this video is useful to you. And if you have an example that you used of this tutorial, I'll be very glad to see it. And I hope you have good success with this technique, and definitely leave a comment to let me know.